This conference will now be recorded.
Hey everybody, good afternoon. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We are March 1st. Can you believe it? We are finally in March. February's over. March is an exciting month for me because the shipping season is starting. We are exactly 25 days away from the first full shipping day here in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and Michigan. March 25th, 12:01 a.m. is when the lock gates will open and we will see our first ship of the season. Who's it going to be? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Maybe we'll ask our guest today. You will all recognize her. She is another Canadian just like me. I'm very proud to be able to interview her today. A wonderful lady that sails both with Canada Steamship Lines and Algoma, depending on who needs what. I am here with the ship to shore chef, Catherine Schmuck. Thank you so much for meeting with me today. I'm so excited to talk to you. You have so many fans, so many followers. I'm one of them. I have your books. I can't wait for the new one to come out. We're going to touch on the books. We're going to touch on you, your career, everything Great Lakes shipping. But first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I know everyone's going to love seeing you and hearing from you today.
Hi there. It's nice to be here, and I appreciate that you gave me a call, and it's nice to just hang out and chat.
I know that's the best part, isn't it? Just getting to know people and talking and having a good time. So, I'm going to start because I want to go back before your shipping career. You've had a very interesting life, and you had a restaurant prior to getting into the shipping world. So I'd like to hear about that, what it was like to run a restaurant, and your transition from doing that to getting into shipping, and how you got started in this kind of career.
Right. Well, I actually started with sailing. So from high
Cool.
school, yeah, from high school, I was working in a family-run motel bar, and there was a gentleman who used to come in the afternoon and have a drink, and he knew that I had just finished, graduated from high school, and he said, "So what are you going to do?" And I said, "Oh, well, I'm planning a trip with my sister, Lorraine, to go to Europe." And he said, "Do you want to make a lot of money and have a lot of vacation?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm 19, of course." So he talked about sailing. So I was like, "Oh, that sounds fun." And I lived on, I'm from originally from Brockville, Ontario, which is on the St. Lawrence River. So I saw the ships going by and I was familiar with it, but knew nothing about it. And I went home that night and I said, "You know what? I'm going to become a sailor." And Lorraine, who was a year younger than me, she had said, "If you're going, I'm going." So we both signed up for it and never turned back. And it's funny because I think about it, I went and started sailing because the opportunity, like vacation and money, but I stayed sailing because I love sailing. Like it was just like it was a love at first sight. Loved it right away. So the first time I sailed for 13 years, and then I was in my early 30s, and I was thinking, I want to have a garden, I want to have a pet, like I think I want to try living on land. So, but I still loved sailing, but I thought I'm going to give this a go. So, Lorraine and I were skiing and we skied at Tremblant, and you're going to get the long version of the story. So, my mom and dad used to, every time the ship went through Iroquois Lock, my mom and dad would come and visit the ship. And that was back in the day before 9/11, and you could go right down to the lock. You could walk out to the end of the lock, speak to me as the ship was making its way into the lock. The ship would stop. And in Iroquois Lock, the ship only goes up or down, like I'm going to say 6 feet. It could be 10, but it doesn't go down very far at all. So we'd get to talk. We would throw a pail over the side. My mom would put in all these goodies that she brought. They would bring 3 dozen donuts for the crew because my mom was always like, maybe if I buy them donuts, they'll be nice to my daughters, because they did this for my sister's ships too, not just me. So then, and they would bring the mail and everything. And one day they came, and in the mail was a flyer for Mont Tremblant, Quebec. And they talked about the pedestrian village and the restaurant, and that Intrawest was developing the village. And I thought, wow, that'd be a cool place for a restaurant. So the next port we were in, because back then there was like no cell phones. So if you wanted to make a phone call, you had to hit the port at a good time, and then you also had to be able to go ashore and make the phone call and wait in line for other people to use it. But we were loading cement in Picton, which you're there for 24 hours. So I'm like, cool, I'm going to go call this number and see if they're, interviewing and what kind of business, I'd like to open a restaurant. So I called and I asked them, and they said, "Oh, we're starting our interview process tonight." And I was like, "Oh, well, I won't be there for another 3 weeks." And she was like, "No problem. Come see us whenever you get home." So I went there, and I went in, and I remember I bought a special suit to wear to this meeting, purple suit. I'll always remember that. And I went in and sat down, and I said, "Yeah, like I'd like to open a delicatessen." And the guy said, "Well, we already have a delicatessen, but we're looking for a creperie." And I'd never had crepes before in my life. But I said to the guy, I said, "Oh, I love crepes." I'm like, "And where is the, I said, "And where's your favorite creperie?" And he said, "Well, in Quebec City on Rue Jean." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I left his office. I went to the nearest payphone and I called my mom and I said, "I'm going on to Quebec City. I won't be home yet." So Lorraine and I had bought a house next door to my mom and dad. So I was like, "Don't look for me. I'm not getting home yet. I'm continuing on." So I went into this restaurant in Quebec City, this little creperie, and I was like, "You know what? I can do this." So I went back on the ship and started practicing and put together a business plan. And after my 3 months, I was on the Demery then, the Louis R. Demery. I was on there for 5 years. That was my steady chief cook job. And I put together a little business plan and made an appointment and went in, made the appointment right before lunch because if you're going to sell an idea for a restaurant, you want them to be hungry, right? So I went in with my photos and my little presentation, and he's like, "Okay, you're the crepe lady." So that's
Wow.
how that happened. So I had the restaurant, and again, Lorraine, she's like, "If you're having a restaurant, I'm going with you." She goes, "You can't go with that." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So yeah, so we started the restaurant, and it was not easy because I was in Quebec and the ski resorts in Quebec, and I'm from Ontario, and they're like, "How dare you, the English girl, do the French crepes?" I'm like, "Give me a chance, wait and see." And people of course loved the food, but I think what they loved too was the fact that we had a story. And that's when the
Yeah.
first thing about sailing, like I left sailing, I still loved sailing. It was in my heart, but I wanted this restaurant.
Yeah.
But any opportunity I had to speak to people, I would tell them stories about sailing and working on a ship. And when I went on my first ship, my girlfriends gave me a little chef doll as a going away present. We called him Sven. And every port I went to after that, I collected more chef dolls.
Oh,
So when I left sailing after the first 13 years and opened my restaurant, I had over 700 chefs. So I decorated my creperie with these little chef dolls. So when people would look at the chef collection, then I would say like, "Oh, that one I got in Midland." They have the grain elevators there, and like, "Oh, that one I got in Windsor when we were loading salt." And I would tell the people how when we were in a storm, I would have to take the little chefs that I had collected and put them in my drawers so they didn't fall off the shelf. So I was always having a chance to talk about sailing. So yeah,
wow.
that's did the
How?
restaurant for 24 years.
Okay. I was just gonna ask you how long you had the restaurant. So what made you then go back to sailing again after that?
I think there was a few things that happened, and I'm the type of person that I kind of believes that you are where you are meant to be. And like I really try really hard to believe in like destiny and your path and that you don't fight it. So there was a few things. I was involved in a lawsuit because I moved my restaurant and my ex-landlord was very unhappy with me for
Oh,
moving because they were generating a lot of money from us because the rent that we were paying was a percentage rent, and we were getting a lot of people who were coming to the hill specifically because they wanted to eat at our place. Like the girls in the reservations used to come and eat at our place, and they would say like, "Oh my God, People are calling in for the reservations to come to the ski resort, but they want to know if your restaurant is still there because if it's not, they're going to go somewhere else this year. And I was
Well,
like, oh, but we, I love food, right? And for us, it was always about not just the food, but the experience and the whole thing. So we had a following, and people wanted to eat there. So the my landlord wasn't very happy with us, so they sued us, and I had signed the lease, and yeah, I did sign the lease, leaving myself wide open to a lawsuit. And so what they did, they took over my location and hired all my staff, offered them more money, did a renovation, and sent me the bill. So
oh, I see.
yeah, yeah. So I lost that lawsuit, and that kind of put a lot of strain on us. And I was like, you know what? I'm not having fun anymore.
Yeah.
So
Well, no, I guess not.
yeah,
Nice
so
to go
I'm
back.
sorry.
At least you had, the ships to go back to somewhere where you knew you had that joy and that happiness that, you
Yeah,
left behind to try the shore life. So,
yeah, and the funny thing is that even before that happened, I was already talking about to Lorraine because, as we age, we're like, what do we still want to do? And I've been in the restaurant business for 24 years. We had some amazing years, but it was not as much fun as it was in the beginning. And there was it was difficult to find staff. And it wasn't anymore, it just wasn't what it was. We just weren't having as much fun. And I said to Lorraine, I said, what do you think if I just go back and sail for like a month here and there in between with the restaurant? Because there was busy seasons and there was quiet seasons. So because we're at a tours, like it's a ski resort and golf. So there's shoulder seasons. And I'm like, what if I go and sail? And so we started thinking about that. But then when the lawsuit came and they sued us and we lost, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going sailing again.
yeah.
No question. I was like, absolutely. And the joy that that brought to me,
Oh,
knowing that I
sure.
could do what I loved to do again was amazing. And I was just like, the second I set foot on the ship on the Algoma Hansa, I was like, oh, this is like the joy that I felt was just like, I was like, yes, I am where I am meant to be.
Oh,
And
good.
thank you to the lawsuit and thank you because would I have made that switch if not for that? Maybe not, So
No, no.
again, I was where I was meant to be.
Yeah, everything happens for a reason. That's the whole idea. So it brought you full circle. Well, that's now okay. Now, when you went back, you'd been gone for so long. Did you notice a big difference in sailing in general and, ships and galleys and things like that? Or was it basically the same as when you had left?
First of all, the big difference is crew cuts. Like that was for sure. But that worked in my favor because we were four in the galley before.
Wow.
Now the Algoma Hansa was my first ship. When I came back, I was one, which was fine
Yeah.
because I didn't have to deal with anybody else. I just did what I wanted to do. It was just like, and I'm like, oh my God, they're paying me for this? Like I get to just like cook and make what I want and play my music and I was just in heaven. So I was just like, okay, this is cool. And I was only cooking for 17. So that was like, and I had been on a tanker before, but it was the first time I was on a tanker inland waters. It was an easy job. It was just, okay, this is almost too much fun. And for sure, the other difference, noticeable difference is technology, like
Yeah.
cell phones, internet, and to be able to keep in touch with everybody. Because back in the day when I sailed, you couldn't talk to anybody at home. You had to wait until you got into port, and you had to hit it at the right time, and of course, wait in line at the phone booth. But now you can call anybody anytime, and I think that's also when I decided, you know what, I'm going to document this because when I knew I was going back sailing, I was like, I had forgotten a lot. And I was like, no, this time I'm gonna document this and I'm going to like share it on Facebook. So that's how I started, like just, jotting down my thoughts, sharing some photos from the day with my friends. And that's how I started like I don't like to call it blogging, but like sharing my stories.
Yeah.
And it was really like it gave me the opportunity to think about my day at the end of the day and just like enjoy it again. Like I would enjoy my day, but then at the end of the day, I could enjoy it again when I thought about the highlights of my day and go through my pictures and that, and then to share that.
Wow. So talk to me a little bit about each galley because and well, I guess I'll back up a little bit because we talked about this before. The way things work for you is a little bit different than most Americans. Oftentimes, a mariner will be assigned a vessel and it's where they are all the time. And then in the off season, you give the one company that you work for a number one choice, a number two choice, and a number three choice. And if they can, they place you in your number one ship. And then whatever ship you get at the beginning of the season, that's what you're on for the whole season. In your case, you're a member of the union, and then the
Right.
union presents opportunities to you, whether it's with Algoma or CSL or whatever. And then you look at the scenario and whether it fits your schedule or if it's the type of ship you're comfortable on, and then you choose that. So you're not on one vessel through the course of the season. You might be on three or four or five or whatever it is. So knowing that, talk to me a little bit about the different galleys that you've been in and working alone versus with a second cook, and what your favorite type of galley is, what makes you happiest when you're in your space where you spend so much time.
Yeah, for sure. The a lot of the galleys are different. And when I first came back to sailing, I got the Algoma Hansa. So I registered in the Union Hall in Montreal. And this has changed recently with COVID. You used to have to register at the hall and you had to sit at the hall. And if the job came up on the board and you weren't there, you wouldn't get the job. Like you had to
Wow.
be there to get the job. So, and they had three, I think it's three job calls a day, two for sure, at 10 and at 1. I think it was 10, 1, and 3. It was three job calls a day. So if the job came up, they would put the job on the board. Then you would have time to look it up and see what type of ship it was and get whatever information you wanted. So that's how I got the Algoma Hansa. It came up as a medical relief. So a medical relief is a minimum of 2 weeks, but can go on. And that's exactly what happened on the Hansa. It went on for over a year. So
Wow.
there I was working on the tankers. It's 30 days on, 30 days off. It was excellent. I loved it. And I was working by myself. It was a really good job. The Hansa had big, beautiful windows in the galley. It was amazing. And they had a back door. So for me, my priority when I sail are windows in the galley and a back door. I've also been on, I enjoyed working for Algoma and on the tankers. When I got off the Algoma Hansa, I was off just a couple of weeks and had registered in Thorold. They had already started with the COVID. Um, well, COVID had started, so you registered in the hall. You didn't have to, you weren't allowed to go to the hall. So if a job came up, they would call you in the order that you are on the board. So they would call you and say, okay, I've got this job. And you would have to like think, like have a second to think and say yes or no. So they called me. There was a job. I believe it was to go over to Japan and pick up a ship and bring it back. But I
Wow.
needed a minute to think about it. So I said, can I call you back? He said, might not have the job. So I called Lorraine and I said, what do you think? And she was like, it scares me for you going over the ocean. But I'm like, yeah, but Japan, like they would send me to Japan. And
Yeah.
she's like, okay, do it. So I called 10 minutes later, the job was gone. I was like,
Oh yeah.
okay. But
Yeah.
like 2 hours later, they called and they said, okay, we've got the Paul Martin. And I knew the Paul Martin was like laid out like the Desmarais, which is now the CSL Laurentian. I
Oh yeah.
loved the layout of that ship. I was on it for 5 years. So I thought, okay, Paul Martin, yep, gonna do that. So I said immediately yes. So the Paul Martin, the thing I like about the Paul Martin, they have a back door in the galley. They've got the portholes, but she has like a really big mixer machine. I love to make bread, so that's a big plus for me. There's a steamer. I've never seen an industrial steamer on any other ship, so that was a plus. Thing I
Cool.
loved about the Paul Martin, I could walk on deck. When I
Oh,
was
yeah.
on the tanker, you can't walk on deck on the tankers. Like
No.
you can walk around the back a little bit, but that's it. And I missed that because when I was on the Demaray, when I sailed in the beginning, I would walk every evening on deck, and I really missed that. So the Paul Martin offered that, and she went down below so I could wave at my family in Brockville, and so it had a lot of pluses. So then
Wow.
I got a job. I finished the job. It was a 6-week job on the Martin, and I was in the car on my way home from that job. And the union called and said, "We've got a job in Sydney, Nova Scotia on a tanker, 8 days." I'm like,
Oh,
"Okay, okay, sign me up. I'm going." That was through Algoma, and they paid my way. Sometimes the jobs you have to ask if they'll pay your way because sometimes when you're a relief cook, you're responsible for paying your own way. So,
oh,
and that can get very expensive. So, I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I went, did one trip, cooked for 8 people. Like that was
fun.
just like, and I'm getting paid for this, like really? So
Yeah. And
that,
nice too.
that
That
was
would have
fun. Yeah, that was a good. They had nice windows on that in that galley. And then I took another tanker, no windows in the galley, no door. I felt like it was in a box. I'm like, I am never going back to this ship. So people ask me like, will you turn down a ship? Absolutely. If I
yeah.
know there's no windows or no portholes, I'm not going to that ship. That's
Yeah.
not going to happen
That's
because
true.
I need that.
Stage in your career and you want to make sure that you're happy doing what you're doing. So
Yeah.
absolutely put those things in there that you know you definitely want. Um, Talk to me about being a female in the industry of sailing. I'm sure it's different now than it was when you first started a long time ago. I
Yeah,
dare do
because now
many back
I'm
then. A lot.
yeah, exactly. Because now I'm older. Like back then it's like the young girl, right? So it's like, but now I'm like the mother. So it's
Oh,
kind of
sure.
like
Yeah, I guess that's one way of looking at it. But even back when you would have started, there wouldn't have been many women sailing at all. And
no.
if there were, it would have been like you in the galley here and there. But now we're seeing deckhands and engineers and mates and captains. There are 6 active captains right now on the Great Lakes that are women. And proudly, we can say that 5 of those are Canadian. And I think that's really a cool thing that females have really adapted and changed how sailing is because it used to never happen. So I don't know if you've noticed that, if there are a lot of women out there on the ships that you sail on, or you've seen them or heard of them. But how do you feel as a woman out there doing what is typically done as a man? Is it sort of an extra set of accomplishment for you, or?
Oh, I'm always happy to see women out there because first of all, I'm proud when women are in power positions, like I'm proud of women that they're doing these jobs. So I have sailed with 2 of the female captains,
Oh,
and
cool.
I have sailed with a female chief engineer. I've sailed with 2 female first mates, and I've sailed with women that are in the cadet programs. So
Cool.
yeah, I've sailed with a lot of women. It's funny how in some crews, not all of them, how they think that we will naturally just um, hang out with the other women, which
Yeah.
isn't true, but they just think that because the women, well, like I always say, well, like we don't braid each other's hair, like, we're just, you know, we're crew members. But for sure, there is that. I think having the women softens the atmosphere a little bit, like because in general, women we are, well, I don't want to call like yes, we can do the job, but I think we bring something extra to the job
Yeah.
that perhaps you wouldn't get if there was a man in the same position,
Yeah.
So I think there's like, and even as a cook, like I think like the women, not everybody, but I think sometimes like women cooks bring a softness or, like I was on a ship once and the guy would come in and he goes, really, I just want to hear a woman's voice. Like he would talk to me and it was just, I just need to hear a woman's voice. So there is that something that it brings something to the ship that, for sure, adds, I think, a certain softness to the environment.
I would agree with that. And it's nice to see a lot of females succeed in hierarchy positions too, like getting up to high mates positions and captains and chiefs and things like that. It just shows that we're able to do things that guys do. And the thing that makes me happiest is that whenever I've talked to females who have been in those positions, they've all said how receptive the men on the ship have been and respective and respectful to them and their abilities. And I've seen interviews with men who have said, you know what, she's the best captain I've ever sailed under, or,
Yeah.
things like that. So they realize that you can do the job and do it as well or even better than some of the men that are there. So that's kind of a cool thing for me. I'm very proud of the women, even though I don't sail myself. I look at that, and every time I see a promotion of a female or more females out there, I get excited about that. That's a cool thing.
Yeah, and I'm always happy to see women on board too, like and I think that's great. And I've even, like with some of the younger cadets, I'm like, like sometimes I'll say I did have like one instance where there was one cadet and I had a conversation with her and I said, "You know what? You're representing women. This is an opportunity for you to represent women,
Yeah,
because I don't think she was taking her position very seriously. And I said, you know what? You always remember, because the cadets are young. And
yeah,
I just said, and to me, that was the little mothering thing in me saying, like this is an industry with a lot of men, and for women to be in it, you're representing women, so you need to represent us well.
sure. Yeah, and take it seriously. That's the only way to do it. I want to get to a fun topic now. I want to talk about your books. Uh, I
Books,
get
ask,
excited
yeah.
that I am a huge fan of the first book that you put out, the Ship to Shore Chef book, the cookbook with your adventures and the stories and the photos and all those kinds of things. I've absolutely loved looking through it. Talk to me about what made you decide to do that, what kind of a daunting task that was to take on, and talk about your successes. And we'll obviously get into how you can order that book as well. But talk to me about the process of creating that book first and let us all know how that came about.
Well, I'm glad you like it. I'm very proud of it. And the book came about um the years that I had the restaurant, people were like, you need to write a cookbook. Like there was always like, you need to write a cookbook because we want your recipes. So that was kind of in the back of my head. But I also like with the sailing, when I started posting on Facebook and having the photos, I realized that people are really interested about ships. Like they're very curious because they don't know what's going on. And I thought that was so interesting. Um, these people and how many people were following ships, and I thought, you know what? This would be a great combo to do the cookbook, but also the sailing the ships and my story. How did I get onto sailing? Because a lot of people were like, well, how did you start sailing? And the whole thing. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to write this book. So I decided to be a self-published book. I asked Lorraine, will you be my publisher? And she said yes. So I love my computer. I like working on the computer. And I thought, you know what? I can do this because what I learned, like I used to make my own menus when I had the restaurant, and what I learned, like when, if we wanted to do something, I would have to put all the information together, get all the photos and everything, and I would send it to somebody else. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm doing all the, gathering of the photos. I'm doing all the creative part. All I'm missing is like just like to get it on the computer, to get it on the program. And I was like, you know what? I can do this. So I started doing my own menus at the restaurant. And that gave me the confidence to just say, you know what? I'm going to write my own book and I'm going to design it. And we did work with a designer, and they helped us to get it from my computer to the internet. Like I'm using Shopify. So they introduced me to that. And I remember the graphic artist, like it was a father-daughter team, and the father was helping us to set it up, like how do you get your book from your computer to people's homes. So Shopify, okay, that's great. So his daughter was in graphic designs, and I shared the layout of the book, and she said, she goes, there's nowhere to breathe on your book. She goes, you've got these pages like from cover to cover photographs. She said, you need to like get rid of some of these photos and leave some room for people to breathe. And I'm like, no, 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 you don't, no, no, that's not me. I am a fill the plate to capacity kind of girl. I'm like, it's got to be overflowing. And, like visually, it just has to be like everywhere. So I was like, okay, yeah, I know the norm is to, just have some writing and have some pictures. No, no, no. I want pictures everywhere. I want, and writing your own book, you can do that. So
Yeah.
that's exactly what I did. I found a printing company in Toronto. I wanted it to be printed in Canada. It's much more expensive, but I'm like, you know what? This is a Canadian project, and I'm going to have it printed in Canada. So we talked about, on my Facebook, and I talked about it. So I said, okay, the book's going to be sold starting June 15th, 2021. So my goal was to sell 1,000 books in a week, and we sold 1,020 books the first week, which was so
Wow.
exciting. Yeah, it was
That's
so cool. Yeah,
amazing.
it was fun, and I'm really excited. I think the most exciting part is when people get their books and they write and they say it's so much more than a cookbook. It's so much
Yeah.
more than I expected, and I'm like, that's to me, that's success.
Well, that's what I thought when I got my copy of it. I mean, books can be fun, and I mean, some of them are boring because all it is recipes and text. You don't even have photos. So the only
Yeah.
cookbooks I buy in general are the ones where you can have some photos of what it is that you're making so that you can see what it's supposed to look like. Yours, on top of everything else, it has the photos of the food, but it has the photos of the vessels, of the views, of the people, of your life prior to, your family, storytelling, background. It's just such a wonderful compilation of so many different things. It gives people a chance to look into your life, but to also look into life on a vessel and what it's like. And everyone's always fascinated with what all the mariners eat on the ship. So to actually see what you cook and what successes you've had that way make it a really interesting book. So it's loads of fun to look through. And I think anybody who buys it and uses your recipes, they'll kind of pretend they're on a ship because they
Yeah.
come from, it's one of those things we all want to have that opportunity. So to actually do what you do is something that's really fun. So that's gone really well. If anybody wants to order Catherine's book, you have to go to her website, shiptoshorechef.com. I think that's what it is.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
it'll bring you right to the page. It has both her books there. We'll talk about the second one, her children's book, and then she's got a new one coming out. But shiptoshorechef.com is the website to go order the books. They get shipped directly to you as quickly as possible, and I know she's waiting for you to go buy them, so you have to go do that. And I can tell you firsthand, you'll absolutely love it. You'll sit there and just take your time and flip through every single page. As she said, it's loaded with photos, but it's photos that you're going to love. And I know you'll love them because I love them. I love this industry. So everything that she does is just wonderful that way. Um, on that website, you'll also see the Stowaway Adventures. So talk to us about that children's book and what made you change directions and get into that. It's a really fun. I bought that too. I don't have kids. I don't care. I bought it anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes people are like, well, what age group is the Stowaway Adventures for? I'm like, my mom's like 88 and she loves it. So, I mean, any
Exactly.
age.
I didn't care. I don't have kids. I don't have nieces, nephews. I got nothing. I didn't
Yeah.
care. I wanted the book because I thought it was cool. I thought it was a great idea. It's about shipping. You're in it. I love the whole concept of it. So I'm all over it. So talk to me about that and how that got going.
Well, that, funny enough, was actually in my head the first time I sailed. So
Oh, wow.
back in the early 90s, I had wanted to do that, to do a children's book. So before the cookbook was the children's book. So
Cool.
it had always been in my mind to do that because I just love sailing so much, and I just just realized that, like there's there's just so many things people don't know about sailing, and it's just, to me, it's interesting. It's interesting that you pick up the grain in Thunder Bay, and that how they load it, and that goes down through the seaway, and that you go down through the locks, and there's just so much to be able to share with the story. And originally it was going to be about a squirrel going through this adventure, and then unloading the grain in Quebec
Yeah.
and to the grain elevators. And what I decided was to do this story, and I wanted to use the photos from my own photos. So all the photos in the book are from my own original photos, and they're illustrated by an amazing artist. Um, um, she's a friend of ours, and we asked her, and we were delighted when she said yes, she would do the book, because she adds so much character to the illustrations. Like, she's very,
Ooh,
very good. So, but when we were talking to another friend who is an artist, about the book, she said, "Have you considered a mouse?" She said, "Because a mouse has more character." And I said, "Well, no, that didn't occur to me, because I'm not an artist like that." So that's when it became a mouse, and the Stowaway Adventures was about the mouse. So I already have like 7 other trips that Mitchell Mouse can take. Like, we've got the first one down, but and I think only because I love sailing so much, and I look at it now like it's almost embarrassing, because I look around and I see this mouse wherever I go now. And even like some of the guys, like, usually, like, when I'm on the ship, like, there's a crew of between 17 and 24 people. So usually, like, you'll meet somebody who you have something in common, or you'll start talking to. And there's one crew member, he works in the engine room, and I told him about the book, and so then he was in the engine room taking pictures, and he goes, "Imagine if Mitchell was doing this." And I was like, "Oh my God, this would be so much fun to have Mitchell in this scenario, or in this situation." So there's definitely going to be more Mitchell Mouse adventures, because that's just fun, and it's
yeah,
easy. Like, for sure, the cookbook takes a lot more mental energy,
sure.
whereas the Stowaway was just plain fun.
Oh, that's so cool. I love it. Now, what about the new one? You're working on a new book that's coming out. Everybody's excited for it. So talk to us a little bit about that. It's totally different this time.
Yeah, it is. It's a paleo inspired cookbook. And so paleo is basically just no sugar, no flour, and just real food. And I think, like we've been saying too, and we everybody's watching the food prices go up,
Yeah.
and how expensive it is, and to eat out, how expensive it is. And I think what I was like with the first cookbook, I was just like sharing my favorite recipes and hoping that people would say, "Well, this doesn't look difficult. We could make this at home." Like, and just, I think too, like, and I even wrote a page about it, is that in the first book I was like, it's really easier to eat at home than we realize, or to cook at home, or to, like, what should we make? Like, and I think sharing the what I make for the crew, it's always exciting when somebody will comment and say, "Oh, gee, thanks, that's a great idea. I'm going to make that tomorrow." So sometimes all we need is just a little bit of motivation. And for Lorraine and I, when we were in the restaurant business, we both gained a lot of weight, a lot of weight, because when you're buying the food and you're like, "Oh gosh, we're gonna lose this," so you eat it, right? So, and you eat late at night, and for me, they were like 16-hour days, and it was stressful, and it was like, so I just, like, like a lot of people, you get trapped in this wheel of just like working, and not exercising, and not eating carefully, and that. So both Lorraine and I had gained considerable amount of money, weight, not money, weight. So we
Uh,
were like, okay, you know what? We're gonna have to do something. Like, we've got to. So, because we were both over 100 pounds overweight, both of us.
yeah.
So I had seen something about paleo, and I thought, you know what? I can do this. Like, and I can cook like this. So we started, and both Lorraine and I lost over 100 pounds.
Wow.
So eating that way, and it took about a year, and But what we realized it was like we were never hungry and we never had any cravings and we never felt like we were missing out because we were eating real food,
Yeah.
but it was just like it was easy. So we started and we've been eating, that was in 2014. So we've been eating like that almost 10 years.
Wow.
So it was it was just like Lorraine's like because for me, I broke my ankle in 2011, and if I eat sugar, my ankle it bothers me. Like I have trouble with my ankle. When I eliminated sugar, the pain went away. So we really eat no sugar. If we sweeten, we sweeten with maple syrup. So we're really about, like, do people know that you could really eat healthy or you could eat things that make you feel better, and I think and the whole thing, the energy, like going on the ship, like I really seriously was eating carefully the paleo way, never hungry, just like vegetables and protein and some berries and things. And felt fantastic. And I was like, you know what? I need to share these recipes. I need to do my paleo inspired. So it's gluten free um, recipes. And Lorraine discovered that now if she eats bread for a treat or something, she doesn't feel as well. Like and that's when we started to realize, yeah, there's certain foods when you eat them, you don't feel as well.
Yeah.
So that's when we were like, you know what? Let's do a paleo inspired or gluten free cookbook, and let's show people how easy it is to eat these foods and to prepare these recipes that you feel good after you eat it.
That's a good idea. So what's the plan? When do you plan on releasing it, or have you thought about that date yet? Or
Well, Lorraine always laughs at me because I always say, like, oh, it'll be ready by, such and such. She's like, really? I was like, no, I need a deadline. Like, I have to have a deadline or I can go on and on, like, um, so I'm trying for this summer. So like maybe by the fall, like this summer, fall. Again, it depends what ship I get and how good the internet connection is because my programs that I work on the cookbook are on the internet
oh yeah,
in the
sure.
cloud. So that's but for sure the paleo book is just like, again, just like to give people ideas about, like how good these vegetables can be or how, like yesterday I did my I don't know if you've ever had the egg bites at Starbucks. They're just these little protein egg bites is what they're called. They're bacon and like little mini quiches. And I was like, I love them because they're easy to eat when you're on the go and you can get them any time of the day. So I was like, I'm going to make my own. So yesterday I made my own and I was like, oh my gosh, I've got this down. Like I've got this nailed. Like this is so good. And I think that to me is just like, if people knew how easy it was to just make these things at home, they would.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, I'm looking forward to that. That'll be fun. That'll be
Yeah,
exciting when it comes
yeah,
out.
it is. Yeah, it is a good one, and it's definitely something that I'm excited about, and I'm laying it out the exact same way as the first book. Lots of pictures of ships, lots of pictures of sceneries, sunsets, the whole thing, because I've got so many pictures to share with people. So the that cookbook will be laid out the same way again.
Cool. That's going to be exciting. Well, I'll be buying one of those too. I just know that. For anybody who doesn't know, Catherine's also got a Facebook page, Ship to Shore Chef Catherine Schmuck. So you have to make sure that you follow her there. She's got a big following. It's building up very quickly. And you do a lot on that page. It's not just about posting pictures and showing food and things like that, but you take us on walks on the deck and you do live videos and she answers all the messages from people. It may take some time because she's so popular. Everybody and their dog is writing to her and she does have responsibilities on these vessels too, so she's got to take some time, but she always gets back to everybody and there's always joy and happiness on her page, which is what I try to do with mine too. I keep all the negativity away. I leave that for the news and everything else. So anytime you come to her page, you will find nothing but good stuff. So you have to make sure you check her out on Facebook as well. um, what do you think in terms of your career now? Like, where are you at, and how long do you think you'll sail before you hang it up altogether?
Well, hopefully, Lorraine introduced a new phrase. She said it's not life expectancy, it's health expectancy. Like that's where we're at. I hope I'm healthy, that I can sail, for another, 8 years or nine
Yeah,
years, what I'm hopeful for. But each time I get to go out, I'm grateful because sailing brings me joy, and I just like, I love sailing and I love cooking, and it just brings, like, each day is a gift. So I hope I can sail as long as possible. I'm trying to get a full-time position so that I
cool.
don't have to move around as many ships. Because right now, I think last year I did some ships twice, but I think I was on 5 different ships last year. So it's a lot because I carry a lot of luggage with me. I carry a food processor. I carry a whole bunch of spices and seasonings and things that I like to cook with. So I'm trying to get a full-time position. So fingers
That's
crossed on that one.
And then you get so used to that too. You'll get used to your surroundings, used to the crew and your
Yeah.
environment and all that kind of stuff. So, talk to me a little bit. I want to go back. I guess I'm backing up a little bit when we talked about the galleys and stuff. What people I don't know if everybody realizes that as a chief cook, you're responsible for everything. Not only are you creating menus, you're cooking the main items. If you have a second cook and you're fortunate enough to do that, then they may take care of things like salads and some of the baking or something like that. But then there's ordering the groceries, placing all those orders. When the groceries get to the ship, you've got to unpack everything, put it where it's supposed to be, organize it, all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
then you're doing that on top of getting 3 meals a day to an entire crew of people, which could be anywhere from 15 to 20 people on a vessel, and you barely have time to sleep. And yet this one is writing books and answering messages and doing everything else. So talk to me about that, how you organize your time and those kinds of responsibilities and what you do and how you organize it so that you can get everything done in the course of a day. That can be easy.
Well, it's like, it's funny because Lorraine always refers to me as a magician. She said, like, she goes, I don't even know how you do it. And it's interesting because the second cook I worked with this past December, he said the same thing. He said, I don't know how you do it. He said, I look at you and it just looks like you're standing there. And then all of a sudden, you'll have this meal done. But I think because I cook in my head first, like I'm already, like I have a plan. But with experience now, I don't always stick to my plan because now I have the luxury with experience of getting up in the morning and saying, oh no, I don't feel like making that today. So then I can switch over to something else. So I just have this huge repertoire of recipes, so I can do that. And I just, if I have a second cook, they do breakfast. So then I'm only responsible for lunch and supper.
Okay.
I love themed meals. So if I'm doing Mexican, I'm also doing like if I'm doing chicken enchiladas, I'm also doing nachos. I'm doing cheese sauce. And I'm big, big, big on repurposing leftovers. Like, I can see in my future one day a leftover book because, well, I do. Like, if you buy my book online, you automatically get a PDF micro book, What to Do with Holiday Leftovers. Because to me, I wish people would know that the leftovers can be more fun than the actual meal that they started from. Like, that's yeah, that's my whole thing. And I'll freeze like half a cup of leftover gravy because that will go into my meat pie or it'll go somewhere. And it just
Great.
adds that extra little flavor, and it's something that's already done. So for me, I have a couple of days where I always serve the same thing. So those are my mental days off. Like Fridays, I'll have pizza for lunch and fish and chips for supper on Fridays. So Friday to me is a day off. I don't have to think about what I'm cooking because it's that. And on Saturdays, it's steak night, and don't mess with it. Like, do
Yeah.
not change it. I've learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
Never ever change your menu on Saturday night. It's
Yeah.
steaks.
And that
And
goes
then
across the lakes. Every single vessel has steak
yeah,
on Saturday
it has
night. No matter where you
egg.
sail, no matter what you do, Saturday is steak night.
Yeah. And then for me, I like to think like Saturdays, if I was at home on Saturday, Saturday lunch would be fun because it's the weekend. So I always try to do something fun. And to me, fun is like hot dogs or hamburgers or, pogos or something fun. So like that's my Saturday. And then Sunday, it's always like either turkey or chicken or pot roast or Chinese food. I love to make Chinese food. And I have yet to meet a crew that doesn't like Chinese food because Chinese food, it's popular. So those are 3 days. So in my mind, I'm only cooking 4 days a week, if that makes sense.
That's true
So
because ahead, yeah.
yeah, so I'm always thinking ahead. Like when I'm cooking something, I'm cooking it, but I'm already planning what I'm going to do with the leftovers. And that's the other thing that I do that not everybody does, but I'm like, eat as much as you want. There is
Yeah,
no limit. If you want extras, have extras. If the guy comes up and is like, why do you put my two favorites on the same day? I'm like, look, have both. Really? I can have both? Yes, absolutely. Have both. Have a bit of each one, So for me, I always make extra to make sure that whoever wants whatever they want, they can have it because
yeah,
I always have a plan for the leftovers.
right. Yeah.
So that's,
I
yeah,
think everybody knows the importance of your role too. People have said this many times that when you're a mariner and you're out there for that long a time and you're away from your family, you don't have a chance to socialize with your friends, and your physical job is really difficult to do, and you're tired and you're exhausted. One of the few things they look forward to is the meals.
yeah,
So when you're doing things for them that make them happy and you're saying, go ahead, have one of each one, do
yeah.
whatever, have a little bit, knowing that you can accommodate and then be able to deal with it afterward, that makes it that much more pleasurable for them to come into the galley, and they know they can always look forward to something from you. So I think that's a huge bonus to have somebody like you do that.
Yeah, and it is, and I take it really seriously, and I really do try to find out what each crew member likes. So if I'm making my menu, I'll go through my head and I'll go, oh yeah, he'll have this, he'll have that. Oh, he doesn't like either of those. Okay, so I'll have to put on this to cover that person. So I really try to go through, and in my mind, it's kind of like a game. At the end, I'm like, oh yeah, I was right, he chose that, or oh, or, and I'll even tell them sometimes like, really, I thought you were gonna go for that. So it's kind of like for me, it's always like I always have a little game in my head. Like I'm always trying to challenge myself, or a guessing game. Like, am I right? Am I wrong? Like I mean, sailing is one big guessing game. When are we going to get there? When are we
Yeah,
going to leave? How
yeah,
long are we going to be there?
yeah,
You never know. But everybody's always like, where are we going next? How long are we going to be? That's something that's changed because like back in the day you never knew where you were going next because
yeah,
it was a big secret. Well, now it's not because I have access to it. When I sail for CSL, I have access to the trips. So I'm not allowed to share them until it happens, but
yeah.
um, I know where we're going. So that to me is kind of fun. And with Algoma, you just like, well, where are we going next? And they tell you. So that part has changed. Those things aren't as much of a big secret anymore. And for sure, the other thing, like there was, like there's other things that have changed, but mostly it has kind of changed. It stayed the same. Like
Well, that's
it's definitely the smaller crews. People are working more. They're more tired. Back in the day, there was so many crew that you had free time and you were, like what am I going to do with my free time? But I think if you're going to be out on a ship away from your family, why not just work?
yeah,
So I think that part's been good.
that's great. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been wonderful chatting with you for the last hour or so. I know
I know it.
everyone's gonna love it. Oh, all my interviews go close to an hour. It's hilarious. Everyone's gonna love this one in particular because it's you. So I appreciate you taking the time. It's fun to finally sort of meet you.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I know where to wave now when we go by your house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can do that for sure. We'll be watching and waiting on your page to hear where you're going this year. It's going to be fun to see you. The countdown is on for us. Hopefully, you'll be starting soon too. So make sure to check out the Facebook page for Catherine. It's Ship to Shore Chef, Catherine Schmuck. She is on Facebook. Her website is shiptoshorechef.com. buy her cookbooks, give her a big wave when you see any vessel that you know that she's on. Hopefully, you're not bouncing around too much this year. I'm looking forward to photographing you going by and doing videos and all the rest of it. So enjoy the rest of your day, and all of you guys as well. Make sure you like, share, and comment and spread the word about Catherine and my page too, and everything that we do. We appreciate all of the support that we get from all of you. So thanks, Catherine. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you. It was really fun. I enjoyed it. We'll have to meet in person one day.
I think we will for
I
sure.
do too. I do
All
too.
right.
Take care.
We will talk to you
Bye-bye.
all very soon. Take care, everyone.